Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Concern is being expressed about truck drivers who spill elements including sand and stones onto roads and highways as they pose grave danger to other motorists, especially motorcyclists. Leontius Joseph served 12 years in the traffic department of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force with responsibility for operations and is now a member of the Easy Cruisers Riding Club. He told Hot 7 TV News that the issue is all too common and truck drivers need to be mindful of the dangers that they are presenting.
It puts a motorcyclist at a serious risk because once you just hit that sand, you just wash out. So we want to encourage those drivers of those trucks to be cognizant of the fact that you all are not the only ones on the road and they have motorcyclists on the road, and by doing so you are putting those persons in danger.
The former traffic officer said one of the main causes for this issue is mindlessness.
The sad reality is these people, when they pass, the stuff falls off the truck, they just continue on the merry way. At the end of the month, week, fortnight, whatever, they get paid, and the business is going as usual. And they would not even be aware that, you know, in your negligence, you have caused somebody to lose their life or cause serious personal injury to a cyclist because you overload your truck and you allow stuff to fall off, causing motorcyclists to be at great risk.
Joseph is calling for more action from traffic police to see that people responsible for such spillages are held accountable. He said while there is legislation to deal with such matters, there is a need for more enforcement in the laws to drive the message home.
There are legislations as far as that is concerned. Under the Traffic Act, I think it's also a ticketable offense, littering. And as a matter of fact, the law even go as far as saying that even if the stuff at the time did not fall, but if it's presumed that it can fall, you could get a charge for that. So I'm again on this note, I want to encourage the authorities to try to, at least on their patrols when they see these trucks with those aggregates, to pull the drivers aside and do whatever they have to do.
Tighter enforcement, he says, is a surefire way to alleviate the problem. The Rastafarian community is calling on political leaders to take a definitive stance on the matter of decriminalization, despite whatever societal pressures to have things remain the same. During a recent press conference facilitated by the cannabis movement to highlight what it describes as injustices carried out against its members, Chairman for the Elders of the Nyabingi Council, Ras Levi, made an impassioned plea to legislators to stand firm in the quest for decriminalization and legalization of cannabis.
So I am calling on Brother Shasney, you know, and he knows who is speaking, you know what I mean, and he needs to step up. You understand? He needs to step up. You know what I mean? It may be an unpopular decision by the people, by the electorate or something, but you don't feel no way. You have to put your neck on the block for your people. Put your neck on the block for the people, Brother Shasney, and your team. He needs to do that. You know what I mean? And the people will big him up for doing such. He and his cabinet. You know what I mean? And I'm calling on the opposition to join hands, that is Brother JPA, to join hands with the government, you know what I mean, in pushing this legalization as far as the herb is concerned, because there will be a legal framework. People won't be able to smoke everywhere anyhow. There will be laws in place. There will be no smoking zones. It will be regulated by the government.
The chairman praised efforts made in neighboring islands like Antigua and Barbados. He notes that once legalization goes into effect in St. Lucia, reparations should be made to the Rastafarian community.
Right now, the government just have to free up the herb, legalize the herb. You know what I mean? The Caribbean Antigua has done it. But with Barbados, that was so deadly in relation to cannabis is concerned. You know you'd leave here with a boat, a canoe, a fiberglass, and reach Barbados. And when you reach Barbados, they would just put have the chainsaw to just chop this thing down. You can't go back to this thing. Barbados has right now given the Rasta community in Barbados 60 acres of land. 60 acres of land under Mia Motley. Yeah, so I big Mia Motley for, you know what I mean, for supporting the Rastafari in Barbados.
Furthermore, Ras Levi maintains the need for inclusion of the Rastafarian community in all levels of lawmaking and policy development, which will ultimately govern the cannabis industry in St. Lucia.
We were invited to the parliament, you know, to go to the Rastafari people, you know, and to see the level of collaboration and integration and discussion going on between the Rastafarian and the government should take that same stand. We have to be integral in all the discussion in relation to the herb. You know? We have to be. People blame us for ganja in St. Lucia right now, you know. Ozirisi Rasta Salaki Menesa. That's what you hear. So if that is the case, and we know that is the case, you know what I mean, work with us.
The chairman highlighted a recommendation from the report of the CARICOM Regional Commission on Marijuana. It reads in part, marijuana is a plant substance with historical, cultural and religious significance to the Commonwealth Caribbean, which existed benignly as a beneficial plant without condemnation or legal intervention for centuries. It acquired an illegal status and classification as a dangerous drug with no value, without scientific or moral rationale to support the radical change in law. This resulted in the draconian legal regime existing today. That excerpt was taken from the report of the CARICOM Regional Commission on Marijuana. A milestone signing agreement for Lucilec and the St. Lucia Civil Service Association may mean smooth sailing ahead for the entities that have been at loggerheads over the 6-year-long challenge of the 2011-2013 collective agreement. With the grade structure issue finally out of the way, representatives from both sides sat down in the presence of a senior labor officer to finalize the prolonged collective agreement.
A momentous occasion celebrated by both Lucilec and the St. Lucia Civil Service Association (CSA) took place on Friday, 15th November at the office of the CSA. Representatives from both ends of the labor relation realm gathered in the presence of Senior Labor Officer Kissinger Smith to sign the 2011-2013 collective agreement. The 6-year stagnation process came to a conclusion with the ironing out of the issue of the grade structure. President of the CSA, Cyprian Montroup, says a level of dissatisfaction is still being expressed by members. However, a closing to the matter is a step in the right direction.
We're hoping that whatever bad blood that existed during the period is something that we may probably put to our backs, and that we begin to engage more meaningful in terms of having a mutual understanding both at the shop steward level and the secretariat level, so that those negotiations do not last those periods. And we're hoping that Lucilec would be a little more, as I said before, your motto, caring, is something that we should embrace through the negotiations also with the staff, not only to the general public in terms of the service that you provide, but the relationship that you as management would have with our workers within the environment. So caring for us means that we would not take a very long period to see the full implementation of this collective agreement. Likewise, as we engage you in terms of future dialogues rather relating to the collective bargaining process.
Meanwhile, Managing Director Lucilec, Trevor Louisi, praises the continued dialogue between Lucilec and the CSA during the 6-year challenge to signing the collective agreement. However, he notes a more concerted effort must be placed on time management moving forward.
I think the positive relationships were maintained throughout the process. Like you said, Mr. President, I think it's an opportune time for us now to sit down and see how quickly we can negotiate, at least for the trienniums from 2014 to 2019. And I would even venture further that if there's a possibility that we look at the third triennium as well. I think it's important for us to understand that while the negotiations are important, we need to manage the amount of time that we are committing to these negotiations, because there are lots of other things that as a company that we have to do. So we've reached this milestone today. I think it's an important milestone, and we look forward to future collaboration with the union, and if necessary, appropriate interventions from the Labour Department.
Presiding over the significant signing, Senior Labour Officer Kissinger Smith shares the importance of resolving all issues within the agreement before conclusion.
These negotiations, although it was just one hold-up in the agreement, more or less, that these negotiations actually take a very long time. People might think that, it's easy to just sign a collective agreement. You sit down and you negotiate today, and tomorrow you sign up a document, but it's not so. So here at the department, I always like to thank parties, and we always welcome when employers and employees come to an agreement. We know it's not always a win-win situation in these things. Sometimes this year you sign a document, triennium, and you lose out, but you expect to gain in the next 3 years because it's something that has continuity. It doesn't end in 3 years, So we're always happy when these documents, we have these documents at the department and signatures are placed to these documents. We see that staff benefit and also employers benefit.
As far as the retirement age dispute, the matter is still being debated by the two parties. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
Young musicians are getting set to take part in the St. Cecilia's Day School Tour, a 3-day 10-school ambitious drive aimed at highlighting the true beauty of music and how it connects people. Organized by the St. Lucia National Youth Council, the event looks to cultivate resourcefulness in interested musicians. Rochelle Gonzalez tells us more.
After asking for requisite spaces to be created for the nation's youth to speak on the current issues, as well as to give their ideas a chance to be heard, the National Youth Council is finally getting the opportunity it's been asking for. The 16th executive of the NYC announced during an inaugural bi-monthly press conference that they saw it fit to create said space for the nation's youth. The advent of the bi-monthly conferences will give persons aged between 10 to 35 years of age the time and the opportunity to air their views and comments that matter to them the most. One such area of concern which was addressed was the arts. NYC President Nias Alfred said one of the major goals of the NYC is the holistic development of young people in all fields.
Over time, we find that it is quite understated the impact that music can have on the development of the young person, the holistic development of the young person. So recently, the St. Lucia National Youth Council was approached by a very talented young man who had a vision for what he wanted to see his skill being used at. He partnered with another talented musician, and therein we came together to create the idea of the St. Cecilia's Young Musicians Tour, a tour that will go across St. Lucia to various schools to basically teach young people about the impact that music can have on their lives.
Over the course of 3 days, 10 schools will be targeted, ranging from preschools to the secondary school level. All-round musician Chazzy Deriviere said the initiative was conceptualized after noticing that there was a lack of resources for music to flourish at the pre-tertiary level.
With this school tour, we plan to encourage them, influence them, and inspire them, as we are prime examples of not having those resources here in St. Lucia. We have become full-time musicians. We are established businesses as well. With that, with the school tour, we will allow students to see the progress that we've done, how we've come up and been successful in our journeys as well.
Producer and instrumentalist Elmo Norville echoed Deriviere's sentiments and said time is of the essence to nurture and harness the talents present in the youth.
People hear music on the radio all the time. We see the stars on YouTube, we see the stars on Instagram. Yes, they get forward for their fans and whatsoever, but we in St. Lucia, people barely support us in anything that we do. We have to be above all things for us to get noticed. We didn't have any tools, somebody telling us we'll be in that place. We'll be placed into a music realm, we'll be placed into a producing realm. We just took it on our own because nobody wanted to help us.
A number of young persons were highlighted and praised for their outstanding achievements, including the newly crowned Miss OECS, Olika Frederick. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
The Diabetes Association of St. Lucia partnered with the Castries Lions Club to provide diabetic test strips to various organizations on island. As part of the Make Your Mark initiative organized by the International Lions Club, patrons were able to take advantage of a free diabetic screening and a global challenge to screen 1 million people for type 2 diabetes.
Representatives from the essential services were the recipients of a donation from the St. Lucia Diabetes and Hypertension Association and the International Lions Club, who are in turn seeking to better the health and well-being of the men and women tasked with saving the nation. During a small ceremony, which was held to commemorate the Make Your Mark initiative, the group was presented with glucometers and blood test strips. President of the St. Lucia Diabetes and Hypertension Association, Andrew Felix, said the main aim of the initiative is to give back to the community and the essential services.
We want to deal with persons who are immobilized and that can't move. We realize how important essential services are, such as the police, law enforcement, fire. So we want to make sure that they're tested so that if they have any disorders, they can detect them early, because early screening is one of the most important things that you can do. Changing your diet and exercise is also important, which is also something that I'm going to be focusing on real soon. However, this is where we start. This is where we start giving back to our community.
Felix said another group benefiting from the initiative involved individuals who are incapacitated or unable to come to the office of the SLDHA. He said this group of individuals are the main priority for the program.
We're going to be dealing with the elderly homes as well, people who are immobilized, people who are living at elderly homes, not individuals who are out and walking around. And then we're going to do a nationwide distribution, but we're starting one stage at a time. So, Mr. Chico, I'd just like to present this with you.
Following the ceremony, individuals were allowed to come into the Castries branch of the St. Lucia Lions Club to take advantage of a free diabetic screening and to take part in the global challenge to screen 1 million people for type 2 diabetes. The month of November is recorded as World Diabetes Month. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. Tennyson Glasgow has all the sporting action, and we also have the information on the weather, all coming up after the break.